back when I lived in London, I did a lot of research about the celebrities in London, the same stuff I did in LA, where people lived, where they died, where they're buried, that sort of thing. Jimi Hendrix and Vivian Leigh and Keith Moon and Cass Elliot, and of course Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. Now, I did a lot of looking for Sharon Tate locations, and I found a ton of them too. But there's one location that I couldn't do because I was told it was gone, the Chelsea Registry Office. So the Chelsea Registry Office is where Sharon and Roman were actually married. And when I was looking for these locations, I called the current Chelsea Registry Office. It was current as of, 25 years ago. And they told me that it was gone. So I never took it any further. Well, Rob, my friend in Britain, actually found a lot of the Sharon Tate locations and shot these locations and recreated or took exact photographs of where the original pictures were taken. And he just gave me the video. He said, this will be really, this is made really for your audience. And so I'm grateful. And I took it. I was really kind of shocked and thrilled because I think you guys will love it. I love this video. And I'm honored that he chose to just let us have it. So, Rob, thank you very much. And everyone, sit back and relax for a few minutes of Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski in London, England.
All the elements are present for one of the most sensational murder trials in American history.
The world is getting crazy.
Can't you see I'm out? Can't you see I'm free?
The past is gone, and now I know inside the cell, nowhere to go.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is London. Swinging London, it's been called, though some people might find a different adjective.
On a gown that touches the ground. Float on the river forever and ever. Emily.
Well, we are taking a slightly different turn this week as we look at the iconic Sharon Tate and her time in London in the 1960s. Now, Sharon Tate was, of course, victim of one of the most infamous murders in American crime history, committed by followers of Charles Manson in August 1969. These murders effectively brought an end to the 60s and the hippie movement. This video will focus on her time in London, looking at the places where she lived, the location that she was married, and the places that she enjoyed the most. At each location, I will show you a composite then and now picture comparing these locations. From her first apartment in London in Eaton Square, to her wedding venue, long believed to have been torn down years ago. I've found the very steps which Sharon and Roman descended as a newly married couple. I also look at her favourite haunts on the King's Road, and finally I take you to her last apartment in London, the house she shared with Roman Polanski after she was married and before she made that fateful trip back to Los Angeles. So I'm currently stood outside number 65 Eaton Square in a very affluent part of London. Sharon lived here in 1965 in the lead up to the filming of her first feature film, Eye of the Devil. As you can see, it is a very nice London townhouse, and I'm told the last house to sell on this square sold for £30 million. Now this house has been separated into apartments, but I'm told by the caretaker of the square, there is such a title, that this used to be a single dwelling, and he believes that when Sharon lived here, it was a single dwelling at the time as well. Now I recognise that post box. There is a quite famous picture of Sharon entering into a limousine right outside this property, so I'll see if I can line those up. And you can see here, we've lined that up really well. And the red postbox just absolutely stands out really nicely. As you'd expect, the cars in this area all seem incredibly nice. As I said, this is a smart area of London. I'm now heading to Sharon's final home that she lived at in London. She shared this home with Roman Polanski. If only she had stayed here in London to have her baby instead of travelling back to America. What could have been? So Sharon's alleged to have said that she was never happier than when she was in London, and she actually spent most of her pregnancy here before returning to LA. Off we go again, this time to a nearby location. This location was used for a photo shoot in 1967. Again, this is quite an iconic photo. You can see here where Sharon would have been standing next to this cobbled street, which is called a mews. You can broadly line up the houses on the left, although because of lens differences back then compared to what I'm using now, you can never really line it up perfectly, but I think this is quite good. Now, for all you Beatles fans out there, during the same year in 1967, the Beatles also visited this area for their own publicity shot, this time at Lisle Mews, which is the next street along. You can see here, although the door colour has changed, the Beatles were stood right out front of this doorway. Keeping with the Beatles theme, we are now at 24 Chapel Street in London. This is the former home of Beatles manager Brian Epstein, who sadly passed away inside this house. He died allegedly due to a barbiturates and alcohol-induced overdose, and this house is really famous with Beatles fans. In fact, just before I was filming here, there were 5 Beatles fans sat on the doorstep. Many publicity shots were taken here, and of course many parties were held here, including a party for the Sgt. Pepper album's release. Now I'm going to show you the nearby pub where the Beatles and Brian used to frequent, so come with me. Now the King's Road was a pretty trendy area in 1960, and that is still the case today. It's lined with lots of pubs, and it used to have a couple of famous clubs on the street as well. And I recognise this area. Okay, this is exactly the spot, so I know This is the shop featured in the Life magazine feature with Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. Essentially, they were being followed on the King's Road as they went shopping for an antique lamp, of all things. But in this picture, you can see where they came out of the shop and they crossed the road right next to this postbox. This picture's become quite famous for Polanski and Tate fans, and not a lot has changed on King's Road at all. And these pictures would have been taken within the year that they were married.
I don't really think of the characters as being a sex symbol or sex goddess or whatever you would like to call it.
On to the wedding location. So if you read online, you'll see that the Chelsea Registry Office is listed as the location for the Tate-Polanski wedding. So whilst this is technically true, location is a big fat lie. In the 1960s, a different building was used for marriages, and that building is this one here. This is actually an old workhouse, which was then converted into a school building. I've even messaged the great Scott Michaels, who is an expert on Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski, and he did not know that this building still existed. He actually believed it had been torn down. So I'm so happy that I've managed to find this and share it with you. Anyone who has seen the wedding pictures will recognise these steps, perhaps the location of Sharon's happiest date in her life. Judy Garland was also married here in 1969, the same year where Sharon was murdered.
At Chelsea Registry Office, the minigown bride and the mod-geared mate made for the Playboy Club and a star.
And outside you can still line up this building here really well.
London. Two top film folk got spliced and the press and public turned out in force. He's Polish-born director Roman Polanski. She's American actress Sharon Tate. And the huge public interest their wedding created shows that the magic of motion pictures is as strong today as ever. After the ceremony at Chelsea Registry Office, the mini-gowned bride and the mod-geared mate made for the Playboy Club and a star-studded reception.
Wasn't that a great video? I mean, the video clips and the photographs and all that work that went into it, the music, oh my God, it was so good. So Rob has a YouTube channel. It's called History Explorer. He is a British Army officer, and his channel is dedicated to British military history from the perspective of a military officer. So you could follow his channel, have a look at it if you want. It's tagged it onto the end of this video, and there'll be a link at the description down below. So thank you guys. Rob, thank you very, very much for this incredible donation to the Dearly Departed Archive, and thank you all for watching. I hope you give Rob's channel a look, and thank you very much for your time and your attention, and until next time.
You heard me.